hot hatch is really a soft equation. Take any hatchbacks, give it about 200 to 250 horsepower, keep it front wheel drive preferably, and then you stiffen up the chassis a little bit and then take out a little bit more weight and you're pretty much on the way to hot hatch nirvana. Now that is a formula that Mini and maybe more specifically John Cooper Works has really stuck onto for so many years, and to great success I might add, making generations and generations of fun little cars to drive around like this one, especially on this kind of roads where you don't really have to go very fast to have fun. But you see, times are changing, and for most car brands like Mini, well, electrification is no longer a question of if, it is basically inevitable. So Mini, well, they've decided to fully embrace the challenge. So the traditional JCW car, well, there's now an electric version of it. And after that, they basically just went, well, why are we stopping there? So they also made an electric version of the Aceman. So naturally your question will be, are these two cars really sporty enough to still be called a hot hatch? Do they still deserve their JCW badge even though they have their new electric beating heart? Well, if looks are all you're after, then the good news is that none of these cars will do you wrong. They all get that JCW treatment here with extra sporty details like the red highlights, bigger wheels, special body kits, and of course the customary JCW badges all around. In other words, no one is going to mistake you for a puny Cooper S if that's what you're worrying about. Now, even though these two cars are called Mini JCWs, there are actually a couple of design differences between the two. Now the electric one over here is just overall a little bit cleaner. You get a more closed-off grille up in front. The bumper design is also a bit more cleaner without the air inlets on the corners, and you also don't get the chunky plastic claddings around the wheel arches like the petrol one does. Now around the back, the electric car also get the larger end plates on the spoiler, and you also get a slightly different diffuser design. But of course, only the petrol car over here gets the central mounted tailpipes at the back. Tailpipes or not, you'll still be able to get any of these cars in the iconic British racing green colour. Yup, even the Aceman. And as we all know, that is the true mark of a John Cooper Works model. Like the outside, the interior of all three cars are also very similar. In fact, unless you know what you're looking for, you probably will mistake them for one another because they are all based on the same new dashboard layout centered around the round OLED display on the dashboard, which over here gets special JCW display modes that shows you extra performance data for when you're driving. Now the interior of all three cars are pretty much abang-adik. You get all of these JCW exclusive trims here on the steering wheel and on the dashboard. This extra boost pedal here behind the steering wheel. The seats are the JCW Sport seats, and all of the accents are in red and black colour because that is the colour of JCW. But aside from these changes though, the rest of the interior really is pretty much identical to their base cars. But that is actually a good thing to me because the base new age Minis are all already very nice inside. But of course, unless you're a poser, you probably care more about how the JCW drives. We're talking about a historic Cooper name after all, with roots all the way back to the same Cooper that has won multiple Formula 1 championships back in the 60s. Right, so the million-dollar question, can this electric car really be called a JCW? You know what, honestly, yes. If the regular petrol JCW is the go-kart for the road, well then this is pretty much just like your electric go-karts. You've still got the super sharp steering, the very agile front end, the almost go-kart-like rotation because of its short wheelbase, and even though this car is some 300 kilograms heavier than the already heavy petrol JCW, well, there's still basically zero body roll here. It really is almost like it's defying physics. The electric Mini that we drove back in Spain last year was already a great car to drive, but this John Cooper Works model, well, it truly takes it to a whole nother level for the more discerning enthusiasts. Mini truly spared no expenses when it came to developing the electric Mini JCW, with its suspensions, dampers, steering and even stability and traction control software all completely reworked for this EV model, all to give it that iconic go-kart character that we all know and love from the brand. And that is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, a Mini JCW is never about the powertrain. But honestly, I think for this kind of car, for the kind of driving that you'll be doing in it, honestly, a punchy electric drivetrain really just suits it so well. It is still front-wheel drive like all Minis should be, with the motor here uprated to make 258 horsepower and 350 Nm of torque. That, if you're unaware, is more horsepower than the petrol-powered JCW, and that's why it also accelerates from a standstill to 100 km/h faster than the petrol car at 5.9 seconds. But it's not just about power, it's also how it delivers it. The instant torque response from the electric motor makes it really effortless to modulate power on corner entry and exits, giving you even more control while driving, almost like you're steering with your throttle pedal. And since there's no need to wait around for the gearbox to respond, overtaking is really as easy as just putting your foot down. I mean, heck, it still even has that slight torque steering feeling whenever you put your foot all the way down to the ground. Now, some people might call that a flaw, but to me, torque steer is pretty much a prerequisite for any hot hatch because it just adds so much character to the car. A car like this should always make you feel a little bit scared whenever you're driving like a maniac. So that's it. The JCW Electric is the perfect future for the JCW brand. Oh, you know what? I think I actually do prefer driving the Aceman JCW. Now, you can call me old, you can call me spoiled, but honestly, I think the suspension setup of the hatch JCW really can get a little bit too much, especially around the, let's call it, less than ideal roads here around the Cotswolds and also back home in Malaysia. The electric Mini JCW does miss out on the mechanical adaptive dampers from the petrol car, and on the, well, let's be honest, horrible road surface around here, it really does start to feel a little bit too busy. The firm suspensions definitely does help with handling, as I'm sure you can clearly see from these footages. But because it always feels like it's on edge, it also does take away a little bit in terms of the driver's confidence levels, especially when it comes to the faster sweeping corners. This, on the other hand, is just a little bit more rounded off. Not by much, but just enough to take off the edge of the really rough road surfaces, and as a whole, I think that just makes this car that much more enjoyable to drive. Now, unless your daily commute really involves you driving around in the Nürburgring, I really do think that this JCW Aceman is the more complete car to own. Believe me, you will have more fun in this, and of course, you also still have that extra space at the back. With the Aceman, you are already getting some 90 to 95% of the JCW driving experience. And like I mentioned just now, you do get some other benefits on top of that as well. Really, the only downside I can think of for the Aceman is, well, it is a crossover after all, so you are sitting a little bit taller compared to the more race car-like sitting position of the hatch. And also, it does get a little bit more body roll around the corners, but as I've always said, a little bit of body roll is actually a good trait because it does help you feel the grip levels of your tyres onto the ground. And when the rest of the car is this much fun to drive, well, I don't think that little bit of body roll will really take away any of the driving experience. I think if you're considering between the electric and petrol variants of the JCW cars, honestly, driving dynamics will be the least of your worries because both the Mini Electric JCW as well as the Mini JCW Aceman, they both already drive very well with the characteristics of a proper JCW. I think the only thing that should really come into consideration is their driving range, because the Mini JCW Electric, well, that is only rated for 371 kilometers on a single charge, and the Aceman here, 355, and that is on paper with some civilized driving. On this kind of cars, well, that is pretty much impossible. Then again, you're also basically putting 100,000 ringgit back into your wallet by opting for the electric Mini JCW. And for the Aceman, well, you're basically trading 50 kilometers of range for a lot more fun in driving. All I can say is I definitely don't envy those who have to make that decision, because I for sure won't know which to pick. They're all great cars to drive and most definitely deserving of the JCW badge. Okay, I think I'm happy with that.